Hello, what a warm and wonderful night. My name is Professor Wendy Steele, and on behalf of RMIT University, the College of Design and Social Context, RMIT Culture, and the Planetary Civics Inquiry Alliance, I warmly welcome you to this very special night, where we're privileged to hear from two extraordinary women, Rosi Braidotti and Patricia Piccinini, who even before they met, shared an entangled planetary scale story. So both are leading giants, rock stars in their respective fields of philosophy and art. Both are interested and passionate about embodiment, the politics of diversity, feminism, anti-racism, and what it means to be human, inhuman, post-human, but most importantly, humane. Both are Northern Italian-born Australians and proud Melburnians, and both emigrated to Australia at a very young age and grew up in inner city neighbourhoods. So it's just really fitting, it's even poetic from a post-human perspective that this event is held here at the beautiful Capitol Theatre and will be simultaneously live streamed around the world for the Planetary Civics launch across a 24-hour time frame across multiple time zones. But importantly, it's here grounded on sacred and ancient lands of the Woiwurrung and Bunurong language groups of the Eastern Kulin nations, which have never been ceded. And so to start the evening's proceedings, we're really honoured to have Wurundjeri Woiwurrung Elder Uncle Bill Nicholson, who will give the welcome to country. Uncle Bill is deeply committed to advocating for the rights of contemporary Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people to access and practice culture on traditional country, and was one of the first Victorian delegates nominated to attend the First Peoples Assembly, which resulted in the Uluru Statement from the Heart. So please, Uncle Bill.
Thank you, Wendy, for your very kind introduction. I always like to thank the very hard organisers behind events and gatherings here on Wurundjeri country, and their forethought and respect in incorporating a traditional owner, elder of this land, to conduct a welcome to country, whether it's in a speech like tonight or in a ceremony. To give you a little bit of an insight of what a welcome to country is, I guess in a contemporary way of explaining it, it's a formal ceremonial process that allows people to feel culturally safe to conduct their business on our land. And not too far from here, actually, at a place called Turak, which is a section of the Botanical Gardens. These ceremonies occurred in many other places within the Melbourne region and beyond. The ceremony, we call it Tandarab Naga or Nagji, and obviously in English we call it Welcome to Country. So keep that in mind because it's a real key part of feeling truly welcome, which I'll share again at the end of the welcome speech. Culture, you know, we've got many different cultures from around the world on Wurundjeri lands these days. I could pretty much say just about the whole world is represented in some form or another. Australia as itself was very multicultural before the English arrived, over 275 different language groups and over 3,000 different family and clan groups. Our language is called Woiwurrung, and to me, the basis of culture is language. It's how we express everything and how we learn everything. We did take a big hit on our culture back in 1863 at the mission station called Corranderk. So people might have heard of Healesville, or about 80 kilometres that way if you're not local. We weren't allowed to speak our language, and I don't like to say it's a lost one. I like to say it's still there and we're trying to reconnect, and I'd like to share a little bit with you this evening. So, Waminjika, Gabamala Mangil, Banabunyalambu Wurundjeri Balak, Nirina Bill Nicholson. I welcome you here for a reason and purpose and a very intellectual discussion about country and where we're heading as people tonight. I greet you and good day from the Wurundjeri people. My name's Uncle Bill Nicholson. I stand here very proudly as an elder of my community, something I had to earn. It wasn't just handed to me. I was the youngest elder of 33, so I got 32 older peers that gave me the right to speak on behalf of my community. And I was fortunate enough to learn my story at a reasonably younger age, and to be honest, it wasn't in the education systems. They didn't teach it. I learned it outside of the education systems. And what I did find was I come from a very long line of amazing individuals, my elders past, with their strength, resilience and wisdom that allowed me to stand here tonight, my family and my community to be here in the modern community of Melbourne. I also found that it did test my emotions, both anger and sadness, but it also gave me inspiration, and that's part of my role that I've taken on at Wurundjeri, actually, to share our story to people that want to hear it. This great city of Melbourne with over 5 million people, my motto is, there's not anyone out there that can't hear our story. We are the last sole surviving sovereign clan of the Birrarung, the Yarra as it's now known. Saying that, it is a bit of a sad connotation because it means there was other family groups and clans that were here for generations, but no longer. So I'd like to acknowledge them so they're not forgotten. I'd also like to extend that acknowledgement to community leaders here today. From a cultural perspective, Aboriginal cultural leadership was all based on humility. Environmental leaders here today, Aboriginal people, if you ever engage with our community and our people, we always talk about country. Country relates to our health both today and our health and our legacy that we leave for our future generations. And also cultural leaders here today. Generally, I like to make people feel culturally safe on Wurundjeri land to share your stories. The more stories that are shared, the more listening occurs, and the more listening, I believe respect is built through truthful and respectful listening, and that builds what we call in language Jindiwarabak Balak, which is unity within the community. Concerning cultural responsibility, for thousands of years when people called this place their home, that they knew that they were taught responsibility to both country and to each other, and I like to share that responsibility to people who call this place their home today and also visit this land. Concerning the past, let's try our very best to learn from our mistakes of the past. Australia was built on racial discrimination back in 1901 at its federation. I don't believe that's who we are today, but the residue still does exist. We feel it all the time. So let's try our very best to eradicate that mindset once and for all, because a healthy country really doesn't work without a healthy social or healthy community within that country. The Welcome to Country ceremony is a law ceremony, which means you had to do it. In a modern context, it's like a passport. Many aspects to it. But a key part of it actually, which I obviously won't be doing tonight, is the smoking ceremony, because it means I've got a lot of fire. But to feel truly welcome to this land, the ceremony of cleansing both Murat Balak, the spirit of people, the energy of yourselves, and Murat Biik, which is the spirit of the land. And in our culture, they're interconnected and cannot be broken. And to feel truly welcome to this land, respect of the people, the land and the culture is our sovereign law, which was never ceded. So, like I said at the very start of the welcome, I feel that respect. So on behalf of myself and my community and my ancestors, Wiminjika Wurundjeri Bik, I welcome Wurundjeri country to you all. And I know you will really enjoy the discussion tonight. So, Nun Gudjin, thank you.
Thank you so much, Uncle Bill Nicholson. I would now like to ask Professor Tim Marshall, RMIT Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Design and Social Context and Vice President, to say a few words. Tim is a champion of transdisciplinary approaches. He's passionate about action on climate change, about biodiversity, about inclusion, the role of technology and the academic mission. As a founder of the Planetary Civics Inquiry, he's ideally placed to launch tonight's event formally. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Wendy, and thank you, Uncle Bill Nicholson, for that wonderful and very generous welcome to country. And hello, everyone here. It's great to see you. And can I say at the outset that many of the concepts that will be discussed here tonight and that underpin the Planetary Civics Inquiry are ones that the first peoples of this country alongside many other Indigenous peoples around the planet have practiced for millennia. And we are in some respects returning to these foundational ways of knowing that are now being brought forward into partnership with knowledge forms and technologies operating at a planetary scale. Of course, this must be undertaken with the greatest respect of First Nations people, understanding also the very real power imbalances that exist in our relationships. It's a great pleasure to be here with you this evening, and I'm sure that you're as eager as I am to hear from Professors Rosi Braidotti and Patricia Piccinini shortly. As Wendy mentioned, this event is presented as part of the Planetary Civics Inquiry, an initiative which brings together local and international researchers, creative practitioners, and industry professionals, all united by the goal to shift thinking, practice, and public policy in order to better represent not only the sovereign, but also the intrinsic and inescapable point that our very existence is now deeply bound up in and has consequences for the planetary. We use the term planetary explicitly to distinguish from the concept of the global. Global references a world of bounded territories and extensions of the nation state. While we are all clearly still grappling with the effects of a planet defined by the global, the term planetary invites us to think beyond sovereignty and to invoke the indivisible relationship between the human, the more than human, and the natural world. That effort must be collective. It takes an alliance of many people, many, as Professor Braidotti puts it, embodied brains and embrained bodies, to learn, to think, and to act differently. To this end, the Planetary Civics Inquiry is dedicated to designing and facilitating a comprehensive collection of ideas, evidence, and frameworks to set new agendas. Planetary Civics Inquiry is one of the many ways that the College of Design and Social Contexts is contributing to RMIT's overarching Regenerative Futures ambition, one which harnesses the scale, capabilities, and interdisciplinary nature of the university to make meaningful progress towards a future where both people and the planet flourish. Which leads us perfectly to this evening's event. Two brilliant creative minds, both experts in their fields. I can think of no better way to begin this year's Planetary Civics Inquiry events than with Rosi and Patricia discussing their unique perspectives on these issues.
Wow. Thank you for being here. Good evening, everyone. And the people online, millions listening to us tonight. Great honor, pleasure to be here, sharing the stage with Patricia to try to reflect together in not too boring a fashion about the great challenges confronting us earthlings, the inhabitants of this planet at this particular point in time. Changes which are not utopian and to come, but right here, very active under our very eyes. They're shaping the world that we're living in, framed by very complex, intersecting phenomena that fascinate both Patricia and me. Fast technological advances, but even faster environmental degradation, widening socioeconomic disparities, inequalities, discriminations. We were caught in a beautiful place between the fourth industrial revolution and the sixth extinction. Hang in there. It's not to be depressed, but let's think about it. Just to keep things simple, I call this the posthuman convergence, and I wrote a trilogy about it because that's what we academics do. And although the changes are daunting in terms of speed and scale, they are not beyond the realm of the thinkable. We can think about them adequately if we put our heads together, lots of sharp heads here tonight and online. And in spite of the high levels of anxiety that these transformations on a planetary scale are inducing, they need not lead us into depression. I think that Patricia and I share a profoundly affirmative approach to these matters, and we want to infuse some of this positive energy into the presentation of tonight. We believe that given the speed and scale of the great planetary changes that are happening around and within us, we need to pay more attention to what binds us together, to the knowledge, the values, the basic units of reference that can redefine our being earthlings and subjects of this particular moment in history, in space and time. What unit of reference do we use to define a new type of shared humanity with algorithms, with water shortages, with increasing disparities, but also with enormous opportunities emerging from the very same historical condition? What is the most adequate manner, the best terminology to describe our interconnections between humans, non-human, less than human, otherwise human, the technological, the environmental, the socioeconomic dimensions intersecting, constituting the fundamental ecologies that shape our existence? Aboriginal philosophies have been thinking about these lines of thought for centuries, and they have a great deal to teach us about what we call, in our Cartesian sort of solipsism, the nature-culture continuum, the necessity to move beyond the nature-culture continuum. Most cultures on Earth have been beyond that for centuries, so maybe time to learn about the binding force of the Earth and its celestial dome. Yes, think we must. And some of our task tonight is to make, for all of you, but especially the young ones hoping the summer here and online, just to convince you how sexy, how cool thinking is. Think. Wow. Wow. Amazing. Amazing. Mindful of the fact also that so much of our thinking is a matter of habits. We hope to convince you that we need to make a little effort to think otherwise, to think harder. The predicament we're in provokes, stimulates, irritates a bit, but pushes us to think further. I have argued, for instance, that we need to look critically at some of the exclusionary aspects of the great humanistic tradition, namely its Eurocentric, colonialist, ableist, sexist bias, to mention just a few. Maybe the man of the European Renaissance is not the universal measure of all things. Maybe there is more diversity out there, maybe. But we need to think even further and not restrict our critical gaze only to anthropomorphic elements, humanoids. We need to take in and take on the non-humans, the hybrids, the otherwise human, that which is other than the human. We need a critique of anthropocentrism, human exceptionalism. We need to think differently. We need to look at difference differently, and this will be one of the big topics of tonight. And in order to do this, we need the power of the imagination as well as the tools of reasoned discourse. Quite a task, but we can do it, so rest assured. So that's the conclusion already of the night. Let me illustrate the shift of mindset that is required in response to this post-human planetary condition by referring to a very well-known image that is almost the first iconic representation of our planet, classical, taken in '72 by the crew of the final Apollo mission, Apollo 17, as they travel towards their lunar landing mission. It has become almost the emblem of our common earthly home and has been deployed in a myriad of ways, also in advertising and PR, as the symbol of a new pan-humanity, which some people applaud of as a new form of togetherness, and others criticize as a lukewarm form of corporate humanism, the earth as a brand or trademark. Yeah, always a spoil sport, aren't they? But let's take it as our blue icon. But to tell you the whole truth, things are not as blue and as radiant as they may look, because as early as '79, NASA began a different project, began the orbital debris program to clear the millions of items of debris, rubbish, which are currently in orbit around our planet. Please remember that we humans have been going to space since the 1950s, and that the Soviet Russians got there first, just incidentally, just to irritate the Americans. So a lot of orbital rubbish has gone up since then. Moreover, NASA has also estimated that at this moment, before the first human colony opens on the moon, scheduled for later this year, early next year, there are already over 200 tons of human garbage littering the surface of the moon, mostly from previous space exploration, including moon buggies, an all-American flag, golf balls, all kinds of things. The phenomenon is so serious that it is known as the lunar Anthropocene. So this rubbish from outer space is due to increase as a result of the new space race. 80% of current NASA space exploration has been outsourced to private companies owned by the big tech giants, mostly Elon Musk's SpaceX. So the type of equipment and debris that is going up into space is actually scheduled to increase. So the blue planet today needs to be amended and updated in a real space. A real image of the space that surrounds the Earth looks like this. A wounded, littered, fragile entity struggling to find some meta-stability. Planet Earth encapsulate the contradictions, the tensions of this post-human planetary predicament, the technological, the environmental, the socioeconomic intersecting to create a planet that is blue, but maybe in a different manner. Maybe it has the blues, and it requires a different type of knowledge and care. I think the well-being of the Earthlings needs to be framed by a non-depressing and non-depressed understanding that these are the conditions that we are actually living in. No room for despair, but a great need to think critically, creatively about the multidimensional changes that are happening around us. And in a world where climate change is being denied, science is being rubbished, universities are being defunded, we also need to understand loud and clear that knowledge is healing, that adequate understanding is sanity, the truth is the greatest means to detox from lies, approximations, and manipulations of all kinds. Think we must. And then, after we have agreed on some basic mappings of where we are at, we need to resist the pull of fear and despair, cultivating together an affirmative approach. Affirmation is not carefree, it is careful. It is a practice, the collective labor of constructing shareable, workable representations of the current predicaments that allow us to embrace the contradiction of our times and sustain their pressures. We, therefore, have to call upon our brains and our hearts to create social horizons of hope, to exercise ethical and epistemological care for living matter, which comes in all kinds of shapes, most of them non-human. We have a duty to care. That's the point of encounter between Piccinini and Braidotti for tonight. Care for the well-being of this planet, which is not one element among others, but it is that which brings them all together in geological terrestrial terms, but also in hydrological, meteorological, atmospheric, socioeconomic, and of course, technologically mediated ways. The Earth as Gaia, living matter, invites us to embrace the radical immanence of becoming earthly, the planetary subject of this particular planet, of this particular moment. What binds us together is the shared ecologies of belonging that ground our existence, environmental, technological, socioeconomic, and through it all, affective. We are in this together. We Western humans cannot be united only by economics. We are not together because we are all here and we're all going shopping, although, an idea. We cannot be reduced only to a mass of consumer-minded humanoids. We need something more complex than corporate humanism. We need a qualitative leap towards values of care, compassion, empathy for both the human and non-humans and the otherwise human inhabitants of this planet at this hour. Nor can we be bonded only by fear and vulnerability. There are big issues, being vulnerable, big time. We have all watched over the last few years as a wounded humanity has had to come to terms with health emergencies, floods, bushfires, and new wars. Confronted with these disasters, of course, we're in this together. But the common denominator in redefining this togetherness has to be more than a reaction to the collectively shared anxieties about our mortality. Because the point is that we may well be in these predicaments together, but we are not one and the same. We differ tremendously as embodied, embedded individual in terms of access to the technology, exposures to the environmental degradation, and in socioeconomic terms. The acknowledgement of diversity does not threaten our unity, does not condemn us to endless fragmentation or free fall into the relativism of differences. It points to a need of generating new grounds to get together, new middle grounds, new milieus, which express the sense of being planetary individuals, earthlings at this point in time. Technologically connected and yet divided, we need to work together to make our embodied differences actually activate new ways of creating binding ties, constructing trust and a sense of shared intimacy with the world, a sense of belonging, again, anew together. Because we are in this great planetary challenge together, as such awareness combined with the sensibility to the differences and the diversities of our locations needs to be the motor for our rethinking, the potentially contradictory multiple ways in which a new planetary humanity is being recomposed right now. There are multiple ways of becoming earthlings and planetary, multiple ways of becoming world together to embrace our embodied, embedded differences. We need affirmative, empowering, empathic, joyful, clever ways of actually rethinking the interconnection, going through difficult reality checks without sinking into negativism or apathy or despair. We need to be grounded and flowing, creative and critical. We need to be great, but hey, this is Melbourne, we can do this. And this is the point where that project and that of Patricia Piccinini intersect in trying to construct this space and make it a horizon of communal practice to engender different new affirmative ways of becoming earthlings, becoming new planetary subjects. With Patricia, we have identified 3 zones of encounter for tonight. And the first one that we will be opened in a second by Patricia is the affirmative recomposition of humanity as a hybrid, mutant, technological mediated entity. Piccinini's work challenges us to review our preconceived ideas about the human and socially enforced relationships to the otherwise human, mutant, monstrous, hybrid others. And this critical process of rethinking our humanities actually revives a cultural, visual, artistic repertoires that challenges our mental habits. You know Patricia, she needs an introduction, but she's a little bit daunted by your invisible, strong presence tonight. Make her feel really loved. Piccinini's here. You're right.
Wow, that was an amazingly cogent and succinct overview of what faces us in the contemporary world. Thank you. I'll be honest, I have actually been quite nervous about this talk. It's not often that I get to stand next to someone who has been so influential in shaping my understanding of the contemporary world and the life that we lead within it. It is thinkers like Rosi, but especially Rosi, who has been instrumental in formulating and mapping the world of the post-human and the Anthropocene, which is the world where my work lives. Her way of seeing and understanding this world and our place in it has been absolutely crucial in shaping the way that I make art and the stories that I try to tell. And so I'm enormously honoured to have Rosi here to talk about this world with me and also offer her insights into the work that I make. I wish I could articulate similar insights into her work in return, but, you know, let's be honest, nobody talks better about it than she does. So I guess I'm just going to let my work speak. And I'm going to start off with a lovely work that I love. Well, I love them all, actually, The Young Family. But they live in Bendigo. Hybridity has always featured in my work. And here we have a chimera. A chimera is a creature that's been made from different animals. It's a Greek word, and there are lots of chimeras in Greek philosophy, like Medusa and the Minotaur. It's also a word used by science as well. So in biology, in genetics, it's an organism whose cells have derived from 2 or more different zygotes. So it's a very useful word. I love this word. And it describes this creature who is a mother. She's part pig, she's part dog, she's part human. She's on this bed, which is kind of technologically oriented, but it adds, but it sort of owes a lot to the interior design of luxury cars as well. This work is about dichotomies. It's about how dichotomies like the natural and the artificial, the human and the animal, are being challenged now. They're porous, they're fluid. We see here a mother considering her lot. She's obviously sentient. She's wise and knowing. She's sagacious. And she's vulnerable. She hasn't got any clothes on, and she's breastfeeding. And if you're a mother, or if you were mothered, or if you just care about people, you empathize with her. What's going to happen to those kids? We feel for her. We feel for all of them. But what if your own child needed a replacement heart? And I've come to understand that that's really not uncommon. What happens if your own child needed a new heart or a new kidney? Would you sacrifice her child for yours? And that is the point of this work. And I'll tell you what I'd say. I'd say, yes, I would do that. Because I'm human. And I just want my child to live. And I'd do anything to keep them alive. And I don't like it. And it's very ethically complex. And it's very emotional. But that's okay, because these decisions around how we understand species and the distinctions between us and what's natural and artificial, it's always going to be emotional. It's never going to be rational.
Piccinini invites us to reconsider some of our mental habits and the relationships to these otherwise embodied others, and both anthropomorphic and non. In art history and in Western science, the monstrous, the hybrid, the other is an object of pejoration, of contempt, of fear. Scary monsters and ugly things. They evoke an imaginary that we need to question again, this Frankensteinian idea that hybrids are actually dangerous, contaminated, impure, slightly fascistic imaginary, I would argue. Situating herself in a technologically continuum, nature-culture continuum, environmentally aware, socioeconomically grounded, Piccinini invites us to reflect on our relationship to creatures and entities which are hybrid because of technology. They are otherwise engineered. They're posthuman bodies to all ends and purposes in an era when technology has become our second nature. And you may say nature-culture continuum, and it, of course, easier said than done. It's incredibly difficult in the language that we have inherited from Western philosophy, from culture and history, to actually move beyond dualism, binary oppositions. We think in opposite terms. And the scientists have been telling people in the humanities for a while, well, guess what? We are all recombinations of the same elementary particles. We are made of the same matter. We are variations of the same proteins. There is no actual fundamental distinctions. For people in the humanities, this is an issue. There is a problem with the view of the human that is built into what we call the academic humanities. We need to move beyond towards a posthuman understanding that we are indeed in this together. Which takes me to the second zone of encounter. We'll be here until 9 o'clock, so just be prepared. The second zone of encounter with Piccinini, which is the positivity of difference and diversity. It is obvious that if you challenge the binaries and the dualistic oppositions, you have to reconsider the places where we have located difference. And difference, historically, in our ways of thinking, has been defined as the normality is the 0 degree of monstrosity. And that is to say, to be normal is to be the least possible different from what is accepted as the norm. So this means that we're still thinking in terms of normative models of normality. This is what Patricia and I call the Vitruvian ideal of the European Renaissance man, also known as him. By extension, this means that any deviation from that ideal, from that norm, counts as not only as being different from, but also as being worth less than. It is a binary that actually conceals a hierarchical, exclusionary set of power relations. The stigma of pejorative difference historically in our culture has fallen on many devalorized, embodied, and embedded others, the others of this classical idea of men. They are the sexualized others, women, LGBTQ people, others, the ethnic or racialized indigenous and black others, and the naturalized or earth others, animals, plants, the planet as a whole. Piccinini's work and mine alongside invites us to think again our humanity starting from this other and to take the negativity out of difference. Patricia.
We're going to look at the supporter, and he's like another idea of a perfect person for our time. But he's not based on the Vitruvian man, he's based on Atlas. And Atlas was given the punishment by Zeus of having the burden of holding up the earth because he was in a war with the Olympians and he lost. And yeah, that was his punishment. And he was really grumpy about it. He really did not like it. It was like it all came to a bad end. But with the supporter, we have an inversion of Atlas. This person holds up a new idea of nature. But the thing about him is that he chooses to do it. It's not a burden. And what's more, he does it in a really elegant way. He does it in this virtually impossible yoga pose. I know because I've tried it. It's impossible to do, but they do it. They have that strength to come up with this new idea of what our relationship with nature could look like. And they hold up this very strange ecology. It's kind of visceral, but it's obviously technological. It's being grown somewhere. You can see the treads of sand shoes, and it's got these kind of plateaus. It's all very ordered, but at the same time kind of bodily, I suppose, kind of organic. And it's home to these birds that are kind of familiar, but we've never seen them before. So what is that? Well, it's a metaphor for a new concept or idea of nature, as opposed to the idea that Atlas had of the earth, the burden that he had to carry. And so what we have here is a family. We have a chimera between a human and an orangutan. And her first child in her arms is even more human, and her second child on her back is completely human. And this family is very different from us. And they're kind of even different from each other. But they really work. And the longer we stay with this work, the more we realize that the work is also about connection. they have an incredible bond, and those children are thriving. The mother is strong and vulnerable. And the thing about her is that she can hold us in this maelstrom of really difficult ideas, because when I think about orangutans, I just feel shame and guilt. And when I feel shame and guilt, I just shut down because I don't like it in my body. I don't like feeling it. I'm Catholic, so I'm really good at that. So I know how I don't like it. So, but with this work, you can look into her face, you can connect with her, and you can engage with these really strong ideas. And it's safe. It's safe because what we're doing is admiring the beauty in them and the connection in them and our connection to them. And so it's a way to encounter these ideas where you can have a transformational moment, and then this can be an impetus to act, to do something in the world about their plight. And at this point, I wanted to say something about skin colour. So I don't know if you've noticed, but all the human figures in my work reflect the diversity of human physiognomies. But my creatures tend to have my skin colour, and they even tend to have my eye colour as well. And that's because I'm pretty comfortable representing people as they are in the world. In fact, I really like it. I like mirroring the world. I like showing the world back to people. But if I construct a kind of monstrous chimera, I'm kind of really aware of the history of negatively equating black and brown people with animals, especially primates. So I'm happy to cast myself as an ape-like primate, but I can't really do that to someone else. But they have to have a bit of me in them, and they will always be incredibly protected by me. And I really, really hate it when people kill monsters. I hate it. Because I love them.
Piccinini's hybrid mutant creatures will not be objectified. They mobilize the cultural history of negative differences and disrupt it. They resiliently endure and return our gaze, looking back at us, but also looking into us with eyes full of compassion and curiosity. Ooh, an earthling, a human. Their composure triggers a sense of defamiliarization or creative estrangement from the established norms and habits of thought. Remember, thinking is sexy? Remember people out there? Cool. The intensity of these others explodes the boundaries between human normality and otherness. They stand in their plenitude looking at our lack. They are the ethical agents. Which takes us to the third and last zone of encounter between our work, which is the question of ethics, the affirmative ethics of care. I said at the beginning that we are not here to bring bad news and depress you, although I see people reaching out for their G&Ts desperately, but to inspire affirmative modes of apprehending our world, of activating ourselves to get into it, to steer the course of this planetary becoming and the current transformations, maybe to improve them, to make it go better. The answer is not to drop out, but to drop into this planetary condition, to construct together social horizons of hope. We need to learn to care otherwise. Piccinini's work challenges hierarchies and shifts boundaries. It is a subtle and theoretically informed record of the convulsive transitions that we're undergoing through our technologies, our environmental challenges, our socioeconomic disparities. knowing that all of these breathtaking technological advances are challenging established habits of thinking. I will repeat this. Learning to think differently is much harder than we imagine, because it does require imagining otherwise. And the relationship between reason and imagination here needs to be reconfigured. Hence, a massive role, a major task for artists and art practice and art-driven research practice, and new alliances between philosophy and the arts, the old rhetorical skills of the classics, a new way of going about what we do when we think, and think we must. We need to rethink the human and non-human, the posthuman, the transhuman in the era that is both the fourth industrial revolution and the sixth extinction. It is a case of and, not of either or. And what Piccinini produces for our benefit is a set of adequate representations of these ongoing mutations and what they mobilize in us. And what she pleads for is a trans-species form of care, empathy, compassion. I call it a posthuman affirmative ethics of care for the new planetary condition. Patricia.
The bridge. So this is it's a portrait of a transgenic human pig chimera being held by a human. She's probably at the end of life, and she's being cared for in this very tender way. She's probably worked her whole life really hard, and now it's the end. And so what we see is, I think there's a kind of hierarchy there. You can still see that she doesn't have any clothes on like the human does. Like, when she's beautiful, she's got amazing hair and beautiful skin, but I mean, I guess there's a tenderness and a togetherness, but they're different. They come from different parts of the world, of our world. And this work is trans-species care. And it also gestures towards how this kind of work, like the nuns and the monks, I mean, they put all their money in art, which is amazing, but they were undervalued, they were undersourced, they were underpaid. And that's the same today. Like, all those service industries, especially old people's homes, they're just undervalued. And yeah, and that's why she looks a bit like a nun or a nurse. She's got this old-fashioned kind of clothing on. And the other reason why it's a pig is because Europe has a kind of fraught relationship with a lot of our domesticated animals. I think there's like 150 million pigs in industrial farms. You know, that's a lot of salami. So it's a big thing. How do we look after these creatures in a good way when they give us so much in return? But I wanted to put this picture in because when I found it, I thought, wow, this is amazing. This is the earliest figurative painting that we have found. And it's just been found recently in Indonesia. And amazingly, it's of a warty pig. And you can see the hands there. And when I saw that, I thought, we've always valued our relationships with other animals. We've always done that. That's why they become the subjects of our works of art. That's why we did it. They're important to us. And I'm just still doing it. I just wanted to make a really gentle and optimistic work. And I really hope that people can believe that there's a kind of genuine connection between these two older women. Because really, this is a portrait of the death that I want. This is how I want to die. I want to die in the arms of someone I care about and who cares about me. That's my perfect death. No fear of depths. So this is another depiction of care, but instead of the human caring for the chimera, it's the chimera caring for the human. And so we're back into the maternal care because I'm really good at that. And I wanted this work to be tender and warm. And for me, this is enough reason for it to exist in the world. Because on the whole, I don't think we see enough of this. Like, it's part of all our lives, but we don't see it reflected back at us in a good way. And we don't help mothers. We don't help mothers mother. We just don't. I think we need to do more. And for me, this is about how we love the things that we care about. It goes in that way. Like, you can love something, but that doesn't mean you're going to care for it. I love something, therefore I care. It's I care for something, therefore I love it, because you're invested. And the act of care is the love. And that's why I feel like this is meaningful. And I guess it's kind of a representation of how we expect Mother Nature to care for us. And amazingly, up until now, Mother Nature has been there for us. It's given everything we've wanted. It's incredible, really, when you think about it. For humans, nature's always been there for us. But perhaps it's time to think about a more reciprocal kind of care. And that might be more appropriate. This is the last work. It's The Rescuers. And it's the most realistic work I've made. And what we can see are two Australian teenagers, and they're holding a koala that's been burnt, and she's got bandages on her, and they're holding her in this sort of makeshift bed, which is a washing basket. And it actually comes from a TV moment. Like, there was a moment during the 2019 bushfires where the whole world saw koalas bandaged up in these washing baskets. And I was really impressed by that. You know, like, we did lose 1 billion creatures, but we just didn't let them go. We really wanted to look after them. Like, we cared about them. And like, a lot of these koalas, they were never gonna make it, but we looked after them. And I thought, that's worthy of making a work about. I want this in our lives, to remember that we lost them, but we didn't want it to happen. That's not how it goes. We do care. In 2050, koalas are going to be extinct in New South Wales. And I believe that we need hope more than we need fear. And the path to hope is through care. And what can I do? As artists, we wonder about our efficacy. And I don't think it's about reducing our footprint to nothing. I think we do need to travel with our shows. But it's about making sure that things we do are about something. I don't want to live in a world without hospitals or university or research. If the internet has taught us anything, it's that ideas and images do have effect. I want to go forward with other species knowing that we are not the same, but that we are connected and that we care. Sorry.
Yes, we need to generate a planetary practice of care and to be practical and quick, efficient about it. So let's apply a golden, fundamental philosophical rule, and the rule is, get a life. Accept the need for an ethical bond between us, humans and non-humans and otherwise human, without giving in to fears and negativity. A posthuman affirmative ethics of care is what Piccinini also calls speculative optimism. Isn't that wonderful? It is an ongoing project, a praxis, which challenges us to understand better, stretch our imagination, open our hearts, if there is room in our hearts. So let us settle in the immanence of just a grounded planetary life, which will have been ours on this damaged but gorgeous planet, in the company of many, not all of them human. Let us celebrate our inexhaustible capacity to become, our collective power to differ within ourselves and between ourselves. We can resist fear and sadness and construct different paths of becoming, but this transformative path can only be enacted collectively, together as earthlings, the embodied and embedded subjects of planetary posthuman times. Shared concern and affirmative ethics open upon a deeper wisdom about what it means to change, about what it is exactly that one knows when one is facing momentous changes in unfamiliar territories. One knows then that life on Earth lives on, regardless of human pretensions and expectations, and that we can only intervene in this planetary complexity by acting collectively in affirmative, generative ways. We, who are not one and the same, but are in this planetary life together. Thank you. We did it. We did it. It was fantastic. That really worked. Thank you.
Give it up for Rosi and Patricia. Woo! Come on, Melbourne. Wow, okay, if you're like me, you don't know whether to lie down, exhausted, explode with excitement, with ideas, with thoughts that you can share, talk to with friends, family, communities, etc. Next week is International Women's Day, and my goodness, have we seen two extraordinary, wild, wonderful women with power, with passion, with intelligence, but more importantly, combining that and holding it with vulnerability, with openness, with the willingness to share with us insights into their work and their sort of innermost fears and concerns. And what's so special is that you've noticed that they've come out together. This is what, this is a gendered position here. It's not, the single person show. This is a shared, acknowledging each other's work, recognising and reflecting on how they inform each other. And I think that kind of collective care is at the heart of really what we're looking at with Planetary Civics. So if you're interested in Planetary Civics, there's lots of QR codes. There's one up here. There's events happening in the next 24 hours, but if you register, then you can get the recording if, the middle of the night is a bridge too far. As part of the collective care, RMIT Culture and the team here, in the wonderful Capitol Theatre have been fantastic. So thank you so much to that team. We've got the team from Planetary Civics around the world who've been working really hard, as well as here at RMIT with all of the different activities. So thank you very much, and also to Tim Marshall for formally launching this event, and to all of the guests that we've had. So I'm just going to call Rosi and Patricia out for one more round of applause, and this is the first time they've ever spoken in public like this together. Please give them one more really warm round of of applause. Rosi, Patricia,